There's a specific kind of fear that only exists after midnight. The kind where your house suddenly sounds unfamiliar. At 12 in the morning, a TikTok user named Jacob woke up to noises coming from inside his house. But what made this different was where the sounds were coming from. Because inside that room, locked away behind a closed door, was a clown doll named Jeffrey. What happened over the next few nights became one of TikTok's most unsettling paranormal rabbit holes. And the deeper people looked into Jacob's videos, the stranger things became. But the part that disturbed people the most wasn't the doll moving. It was the feeling that something inside that house was becoming aware of him. Before the noises, before the basement footage, before people started calling Jeffrey the most convincing haunted doll on TikTok, there was just a man inheriting his grandmother's house. And inside that house sat Jeffrey. Now, logically speaking, it's just a clown doll. Old fabric, cheap paint, plastic eyes. But human beings are very good at noticing when something feels wrong. And there's one detail most people completely missed the first time they watched Jacob's videos. Jeffrey is almost never positioned naturally. His head is tilted too precisely. His posture changes slightly between uploads. Sometimes his eyes appear to reflect light differently. Tiny details, the kind your brain notices before you do. Then came April 2023. Jacob wakes up suddenly. At first, he stays in bed. Then another sound. You know that moment when you hear something in your house at night and your brain immediately starts negotiating with reality? It's probably nothing. The house settling. Maybe something fell downstairs. But fear begins when logic starts running out of explanations. Jacob grabs his phone and steps into the hallway, and immediately, the atmosphere feels wrong. The air sounds hollow. The floorboards groan under his weight. Every room beyond the darkness feels occupied. Then he realizes something that makes his stomach drop. I just heard banging. As Jacob approaches the door, the noises stop. And for 3 full seconds, Jacob freezes. Then he hears footsteps, heavy, slow, climbing upward. He points the camera toward the staircase, expecting someone to appear, but nothing does. And somehow, that's worse. Now here's where thousands of viewers noticed something disturbing. Listen carefully to the footsteps. The steps stop before reaching the top, almost like whoever or whatever was downstairs realized Jacob was watching. Then, behind him, the door begins opening on its own. Earlier in the video, Jeffrey's head had been facing the wall, but now it's staring directly toward the doorway. Looks like it's smiling. Good thing it's not moving, just watching. What makes this footage effective isn't the doll itself, it's Jacob's reaction. Fear is extremely difficult to fake convincingly for long periods of time, especially the small details. Notice how he stops speaking entirely. Notice how his breathing changes. Notice how he avoids getting closer to the doorway. That's not performance behavior. That's prey behavior. Jacob locks himself in his room until morning, and the next day, he decides Jeffrey has to go. Not out of the house, just farther away from him.
All right, guys, this is the results so far. I'm gonna leave him here for now, but I think I'm gonna put a camera here. Jeffrey's still here, so we're gonna see if there's anything I miss.
This is where the story becomes much harder to dismiss, because Jacob does something smart. He installs a camera in the basement. If Jeffrey moves, the camera records it automatically. Concrete walls, old pipes, weak lighting, the kind of basement that already feels haunted before you put a clown inside it. For several nights, nothing happens. And that's important, because fake paranormal videos usually move too quickly. They rush toward payoff. But real fear builds slowly. Then, late one night, Jacob receives a motion alert. He opens the live feed. At first, there's a reasonable explanation. The camera is sitting on top of the heater with an oscillating fan. The movement isn't paranormal. At least, not yet. As the camera swings back toward Jeffrey, his arm moves. Not falling from gravity, not shifting naturally. It looks deliberate. The bulb explodes violently. Blast scatters across the basement floor, and instantly, everything goes black. There's a voice. And once these clips spread across TikTok, people became obsessed. But even skeptics admitted something uncomfortable. The videos feel real. There's actually a psychological reason these videos work so well. Human beings are naturally disturbed by things that appear almost human, but not completely. It's called the uncanny valley. Dolls sit directly inside it. Their faces imitate emotion. Their eyes imitate life. But something is missing, and your brain notices that absence immediately.
Eventually, Jacob stopped posting major updates. No final explanation, no dramatic conclusion, no proof, just silence. Maybe Jeffrey was just an elaborate internet performance. Maybe every movement was staged carefully for millions of views. Or maybe something inside that house convinced Jacob to stop filming. And honestly, I'm not sure which possibility is worse. At around 5 in the morning, during a late-night live stream, two friends accidentally captured something that made them end the broadcast immediately. And what makes this footage effective is how normal everything feels right before it happens. The two boys regularly stayed up late playing video games together, streaming, talking, trying to survive the exhaustion that always hits right before sunrise. There's something psychologically strange about 5 in the morning. It's no longer night, but it doesn't feel like morning either. Your brain slows down, your reactions dull, and ordinary things begin feeling slightly unreal. At some point during the stream, a noise comes from the kitchen, and immediately both of them notice it. But neither reacts with fear, which actually makes the footage more believable, because fear usually comes later. According to them, one of the boys' brothers often woke up around this time to make food. So naturally, they assume someone's in the kitchen. Then the refrigerator door opens, and for a moment, it almost feels normal. Assuming someone accidentally left the fridge open, one of them casually walks over to close it, still not afraid. Notice how relaxed their body language still is. No panic, no anticipation, which means whatever happens next wasn't planned in their minds. He closes the fridge, turns around, and starts walking back. Both of them immediately stop moving, not screaming, not overreacting, just frozen. Fear has a very specific look when it's genuine. People expect panic, but real fear often looks like confusion first, because the brain needs time to process something that shouldn't have happened. And here's why this clip spread so quickly online. The chair doesn't wobble. It doesn't slowly shift. It moves abruptly, almost like it was pulled. Common TikTok comments say, "Nope, the way they froze got me. That chair moved way too fast. I would have ended the stream immediately. The fridge opening first makes this terrifying. Fishing wire? Could have been someone off screen. Chair legs may have slipped. But whether real or fake, the timing is undeniably effective. What makes moments like this unsettling isn't necessarily the possibility of ghosts. It's the sudden collapse of normality. of the most effective horror techniques is anticipation. The fear of something being there before you actually see it. And according to one man living alone in an apartment in Poland, that feeling slowly became impossible to ignore. The man claimed that strange things only happened under very specific conditions, late at night, when the apartment was quiet, and most importantly, when he was completely alone. People underestimate how sensitive the human brain is to presence. You can walk into a room and immediately feel whether someone was just there, not because you saw them, but because your brain notices tiny inconsistencies before you consciously process them. And according to the man, whenever his roommates left, the apartment stopped feeling empty. One night, expecting something unusual might happen again, he starts recording.
Hej, ogólnie to od jakiegoś czasu cały czas
A bottle suddenly crashes somewhere inside the apartment. The sound is loud enough to instantly pull him out of his room.
cały czas coś, właśnie takie dziwne hałasy. Ja pierdolę, co to? Jak?
He points the camera toward the hallway, and for a second, nothing happens. Now, objectively speaking, faulty wiring could explain flickering lights. Old apartments do this all the time. But what makes this moment unsettling is the timing. Seconds after the lights begin flickering, the bathroom faucet suddenly turns on by itself. And what makes the footage effective is how ordinary everything looks. No visual effects, just the sound of water echoing through an otherwise silent apartment. Fear becomes far more believable when people don't overreact immediately. Notice how confused he seems at first. Not terrified, confused, like his brain is still trying to force logic onto something that feels wrong. So he shuts the faucet off and heads back toward his room. Then something happens that changes the entire atmosphere. The hallway light he had just turned on switches off behind him. At this point, most people would probably stop recording, but a few nights later, he captures something even stranger.
Nie, ja pierdolę. Co jest, kurwa?
The man heard noises outside his bedroom that sound deliberate, not random settling, not pipes, almost like someone is trying to get inside. Once again, the bathroom faucet is heard in the background. The man cautiously peeks into the hallway, expecting to see someone standing there. And this is where the footage becomes psychologically effective. Your brain keeps expecting a reveal, a face, a figure, movement. But the apartment remains completely empty. Eventually, he gathers enough courage to check the bathroom. Nobody's there. And for a brief moment, it feels like the tension is finally over. And then he notices the kitchen. It looks like the apartment was hit by something violent. Utensils scattered across the floor, furniture displaced, objects thrown seemingly at random, as though chaos erupted inside the room only seconds earlier. And this is the first moment the man genuinely loses composure. He immediately runs back toward his room. One detail many viewers pointed out, there's something uniquely unsettling about seeing destruction without seeing what caused it. The kitchen reveal made my stomach drop. Why does the apartment feel occupied? Nope, I would move immediately. The silence is scarier than the noises. The faucet turning on felt weirdly real. Could be roommates pranking him. The kitchen could have been staged. Old wiring explains the lights. You might also be feeling what I am feeling. The atmosphere inside that apartment feels deeply wrong. No further updates were ever posted after these incidents. No explanation, no final reveal, just silence. And honestly, that might be the most unsettling part. Because when people fake paranormal videos, they usually keep posting. But according to him, whatever was inside that apartment only appeared when he was alone. Maybe there's a rational explanation for everything he captured. Faulty plumbing, bad wiring, stress, paranoia. Or maybe, somewhere inside that apartment, something hated being watched. There's something deeply unsettling about hearing music in your house when nobody is touching the instrument. A man living alone in a small apartment began documenting strange activity shortly after visiting his father's grave. At first, it was just noises. Then objects began moving. Then one night, something appeared to run at him in the dark. Unlike most paranormal videos online, this one feels intensely personal. Not because of what's happening, but because of the man himself. You can tell a lot about someone just by looking at how they organize their home. Every corner of this apartment revolves around religion. A Bible, crosses hanging from nearly every wall, worship music constantly playing in the background. Even his piano isn't just an instrument. It's part of his routine. If he isn't praying, he's sitting playing religious hymns. But here's the detail that changes everything. According to him, this behavior only intensified after visiting his father's grave. Because shortly after returning home, he became convinced that something followed him back. Now, whether you believe in ghosts or not, grief does strange things to people, especially at night. The apartment already feels isolated during the day, but at 4 in the morning, it feels abandoned. One night, the man wakes up suddenly after hearing a loud knock somewhere inside the apartment. At this point, he's already terrified. Because according to him, strange things had been happening for days. So instead of going back to sleep, he starts recording.
Estoy grabando este video porque estoy tratando de dormir, pero acabo de escuchar un golpe duro por allá en la sala, entonces decidí grabar porque hace días que se viene presentando cosas extrañas en el apartamento. Son las 4 y cuarto, 4:13 minutos de la tarde, entonces me parece muy extraño que hasta ahora están sucediendo como cosas raras. Entonces, comedor. Miren, es en el comedor. Tengo las ventanas cerradas, miren. Esto viene sucediendo hace como una semana ya. Pues la verdad se me hace muy extraño. Se me hace muy extraño que estén pasando cosas así.
The apartment is silent except for the sound of his own breathing. And then he notices something disturbing. Hanging utensils in the dining room are moving side to side, as if a strong breeze is passing through the apartment. But according to him, all windows were closed. Now, objectively speaking, there are possible explanations. Air pressure, vibrations. But fear rarely comes from a single event. It comes from repetition. And according to the man, this had been happening for an entire week. But what truly frightened viewers wasn't the utensils. It was how carefully he avoided looking deeper into the apartment, almost like he was afraid he might actually see something staring back. A few days later, things escalated. The man uploads another video, and this time, he looks exhausted. You can hear it in his voice immediately. Not panic, fatigue. The kind that comes from someone who hasn't slept properly in days.
En el nombre de Jesús te ordeno que te vayas. En el nombre de Jesús ordeno que te vayas. No tienes derecho de estar aquí. Ordeno que te vas. Ordeno que te vas en el nombre de Jesús.
Somewhere inside the apartment, a piano key begins pressing on its own. Once, then again. At this point, the man finally snaps. He commands whatever is inside the apartment to leave. Leave in the name of Jesus Christ.
En el nombre de Jesús ordeno que te vayas.
Watch his reaction carefully. This is what makes the footage unsettling. He doesn't move toward the sound immediately. He freezes first, like his brain is trying to decide whether what he just heard was real. Then he approaches the piano, and the closer he gets, the more frantic the atmosphere becomes.
Ordeno que te vas en el nombre de Jesús.
And immediately after he says it, the piano responds. Then he runs, not away from the piano, away from the room itself. The piano would have been gone immediately. This feels different from fake ghost videos. I am only watching, but why does the apartment feel so heavy? I got chills when the key answered him. Pianos naturally make sounds. He's probably doing it himself. But his reaction? The fear in his voice sounds genuine. Then, a few days later, he stops being the only witness.
Bueno, voy a grabar este video porque nuevamente se están escuchando en el apartamento ruidos. Son las 3 de la mañana con 16 minutos y... Escucha. Sí, amor, sí se escucha. ¿Es en la sala?
Sí. Escucha.
Esta vez no estoy solo, esta vez estoy con mi novia que por fin decidió venir a acompañarme, pues estaba asustada debido a todas estas cosas que están pasando. ¿Dónde es eso, amor?
La cocina.
¿Qué fue eso?
¿Te ayuda?
Yo voy a mirar. ¿Qué es aquí, amor? ¿Qué es aquí?
Amor.
Señor bendito. Amor, quédese acá, yo voy solo, amor.
Yo.
Prenda la luz. Se ve todo tranquilo por acá. En el nombre de Jesús, manifiéstate. Parece que es en la cocina. En el nombre de Jesús, manifiéstate. Vaya para el cuarto, amor.
¿No?
¿Qué fue eso? ¿Estás viendo, amor? ¿Estás viendo? Es en la cocina, amor. Cuidado con la cocina. Manifiéstate en el nombre de Jesús. Te ordeno que te manifiestes. Yo ¿Qué sonó así ahorita, no?
Una cocina.
Mierda. Mira, amor, mira. ¿Ves que no tiras, amor? Es un vaso. Es un vaso. Y mira, todos los cajones están abiertos. ¿Qué es lo que pasa aquí, Dios mío? Amor.
In the middle of the night, both he and his girlfriend wake up to strange noises. The wind chimes begin moving on their own, and the kitchen appears completely disturbed. According to him, there were no signs of forced entry, but viewers became obsessed with one specific detail. His girlfriend suddenly became extremely ill only minutes after the incident. Then came the video that made millions of people deeply uncomfortable. Late one night, he wakes up once again to strange noises, but this time, the sounds aren't distant. Footsteps suddenly charge toward him at full speed. The man stumbles backward as something appears to slam directly into him. And for several seconds, he says nothing, does nothing. Almost like he's trying to convince himself he didn't just experience that. One detail viewers constantly questioned. Why doesn't he turn on the lights? But according to him, most of the apartment's light switches are located near the main entrance. Which means in order to fully light the apartment, he would need to walk directly toward whatever was making the noises. Some said the man continues posting videos praying inside the apartment, reading scripture, playing worship songs, trying desperately to force whatever he believes followed him home back out. Maybe grief pushed him into paranoia. Maybe the entire haunting was staged. Or maybe something entered that apartment the day he visited the cemetery and never left. Most paranormal videos try too hard to scare you. But sometimes, the unsettling ones are quiet. Because in early 2023, a mother claimed she captured something inside her son's bedroom that appeared to react to her. Her name was Nancy, and according to her, this began completely by accident. After waking up from a nap one afternoon, Nancy glanced at the live security feed connected to the camera in her son's room and immediately noticed something strange.
At first glance, it just looks like dust. But then you notice something uncomfortable. It doesn't move randomly. The glowing orb appears to weave between toys almost deliberately, stopping, changing direction, reacting to movement around it. And the longer Nancy watches, the stranger it becomes. Human beings are excellent at recognizing patterns, sometimes too excellent. Our brains constantly try to transform chaos into meaning. That's why people see faces in clouds, figures in darkness, and intention inside random movement. But here's the problem. Nancy watched this thing for over 5 minutes. 5 full minutes. And according to her, it never left the same area. Eventually, curiosity gets the better of her. So Nancy walks upstairs to check the room herself. The house is quiet. No television. No voices. Just the faint sound of her footsteps moving through the hallway. And the entire time, she keeps staring at the live camera feed. Because according to Nancy, the orb is still there, even while she's inside the room. And this is where the footage becomes genuinely unsettling. With her naked eye, Nancy sees absolutely nothing. But through the phone screen, something is clearly moving around the toys. As Nancy watches, the orb begins moving more aggressively, not drifting, reacting. Almost like it's aware it's being observed. Now, there are logical possibilities. Dust close to a camera lens can appear enormous under infrared light. Tiny insects can reflect strangely. Compression artifacts can distort movement. But what disturbed viewers wasn't the existence of the orb. It was the interaction. At one point, Nancy decides to test something. She asks the orb to touch her hand. And what happens next made thousands of people replay the clip repeatedly. The moment Nancy extends her hand, the orb immediately moves backward, almost as if it became startled. And this is the exact moment the internet split into 2 groups. That's intelligent movement. It reacted to her. Nope, spirits exist. Why did it avoid her hand? Dust, bug near the lens. People see what they want to see. Children's bedrooms have a very specific atmosphere at night. During the day, they feel safe. But in darkness, they almost feel frozen in time, like tiny abandoned worlds waiting for someone to come back. Eventually, Nancy decides to leave the room alone. And for several more minutes, the orb continues moving around the toys. Suddenly, it disappears.
I left the room, and now it's not there anymore.
What in the actual F?
Oh my god. Where is that?
And according to Nancy, it never returned again. Nancy eventually developed her own theory about what she captured. She believes the orb may have been the spirit of a child, because throughout the footage, it never leaves the toys. What makes this video fascinating isn't whether the orb was paranormal.
It's the possibility that intelligence can sometimes be mistaken for randomness. Because once human beings believe something is aware of them, every movement suddenly feels personal. To this day, Nancy still doesn't know what she saw inside her son's room. Maybe it was dust illuminated under infrared light. Maybe it was an insect reflecting against the camera lens. Or maybe, for a few minutes that afternoon, something invisible was quietly playing among the toys.
A creepy clown doll, piano keys pressing in an empty room, an orb reacting to someone's hand, a bathroom faucet, a chair moving while two people watch helplessly. Every story in this video shares one thing in common. None of the people involved were prepared for what happened. And maybe that's why these clips stay with us. Because fear feels far more convincing when it interrupts ordinary life. Maybe every single video you watch tonight has a logical explanation. Maybe every sound, every movement, every shadow can eventually be explained away. Or maybe some things only happen when nobody's supposed to be watching. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more contents like this. And if you're awake, watching this alone right now, you should probably check the room behind you. See you.